Welcome to the Working Class Nerds Podcast. This is episode 259. Cue the intro. That's right. I'm Marcus. That's Feta. Rayu has the plague. Nick is on the injury reserve list, but that's okay because this episode is probably the biggest episode for me of the year, maybe even 2 years in the making. And the reason why is because we have Dr. Gameology here. Not only is he a husband, he's a father, he's a doctor, he's a professor, he's a YouTube partner, and now finally, I've known about it for 2 years, but now he's officially an author. We'll be talking about that and more tonight. But first, let's check in.
Before we do any sort of check-in, I know you were gone last week, Marcus, but we still have to mention our Discord because we want to keep growing our community. So, if you're looking for more Nerds community content, you want to make fun of Marcus like we all do on a regular basis, join our Discord. We'll put the link in the show notes below.
Are you done? We're always plugging the Discord. Discord. Let's get to Dr.
One
Gameology.
week, you'll get it. I promise.
I promise to. So everybody, if you don't know, this is going back 7 or 8 or 9 years now. Dr. Gameology and I, back then he was Dr. Swotor, but he is possibly one of my closest friends. We've been raiding together for a very, very, very long time, and he decided to write a book. So, Doc, welcome back to the show for the 900th time, and what have you been up to?
That was such a nice introduction. You broke my face. I almost started to laugh or cry or just like giggle. I don't know. That was so nice, Marcus. So, what was the question?
Welcome back to the show, and what have you been up to?
I've been up to everything you can possibly cram into a day, day after day, 6 or 7 days a week. I don't know if what I'm doing is maintainable, but I do my best every day. It's content for work, content for me and the Dr. Gameology brand. And that actually has merged with one of my jobs in research and program writing things. So I've gotten to a point where mostly everything I do professionally, whether it's a professor or program director and program creator, it all has to do with the psychology of games, the way that I do it. And that is such a different spot to be in than when we first met. And I just needed to help a group of new raiders beat Dread Palace on story mode.
It's really true. The evolution. So we're dating back years. I remember when Doc started to do all this stuff, and I told him, I said, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to be the face of something for this topic. And I've had the back seat of like looking at your friend over the shoulder, like third person view of just watching the evolution of that growth. And it's, culminated to today because myself, Feta, and Rayu got leaked by Dr. Gameology, the first chapter and introduction of his book. And we got to read it, which is pretty rad. But before we get into that, Feta, what's up and what have you been up to?
Lots of stuff as well. Transitioning to new type of position, like professionally, has been busy. I'm still here though in this podcast every Thursday.
Yeah.
But no, playing a lot of really good video.
Wait, you can't just overlook this because I saw Doc do this 7 years ago, and all of the stresses that you're starting with, I already know what you're going through because I watched Doc do it. Tell Doc what job you got, or what your dream job.
Yeah, I took my first faculty position at a private university up in Connecticut. So all the trials and tribulations that happen with this,
I love it,
are coming.
Love it.
Yeah, assistant professor, ready to go. I talk every week on this podcast to who knows how many people, but it's so different when there's 200 of them staring back at you. Doesn't matter what you know. They're going to test you.
Has it changed what life lesson you take away from a bug's life?
Oh, God.
See,
yes.
people who are not teachers or faculty look at me like I'm crazy when I mention A Bug's Life, because it seems like a really obscure reference. But when you're a student and you're a really good one, and your standards are the highest they ever were because of your borderline abusive parents that raised you and taught you that academia was everything. Love you, Mom and Dad. You just never push the boundaries of how bad it can get. And then when you're the teacher, you're not worried about those students who are overachieving and still worried more than they need to be, because your job is about dragging the undermotivated students as close to the finish line without pushing them over as you possibly can, and dealing with the fact that they still hate you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think that was a little bit of an extreme content creation, soundbite oriented.
It's
baloney.
It's so hard when you're trying to help people, and then you get the end of course evaluations the next week about how terrible you were. Every little thing you did to try to help them is reinterpreted as you're the villain of their story. And it's really helped me to understand why Darth Vader matters so much to me.
I think I'm going to have to start revisiting different perspectives, because now, and that's one thing I've struggled as an instructor with before, is being that bad guy and having no bad intentions. Actively the opposite.
Are you a WWE fan, Feta?
Not really.
What are you doing,
is gonna
Feta?
hit me. Huh?
What are you doing?
What am I doing?
Yeah.
Playing with toys on my desk because I'm stressed. What do you mean?
Oh, because we're talking about your job?
Yeah. I just left that place.
Okay.
All right. The reason why Oh, go ahead, Doc.
I just wanted to say, whether you like WWE or AEW or none of it, the concept of babyface versus heel is really important for understanding those stories. And being a faculty, I swing on that pendulum, just like Kevin Owens, right? Like, I swing on which side I am. It takes about 6 months for me to settle on whether I'm babyface or heel, and then I'll stay there for a while. And I can confidently say that right now I am in my heel phase, and everyone just needs to acknowledge the tribal doctor. Even during my last conference presentation, I said in the middle of a slide, "Acknowledge me," to the audience at the National Conference on Problem Gambling. And I turned to my collaborator and I said, I think I'm the first person ever to have this big of a room, a microphone, and a podium, and do a Roman Reigns impersonation.
How many people raised their finger?
Nobody at that conference knew what I was doing. It was totally wasted on them. But I'm proud that I did it.
Yeah.
I saw you raise that finger in the air, Marcus. Thank you.
Of course I did. So the where you guys are talking about your end of the faculty and the students, I'm laughing because I've had years worth of conversations with Doc talking about these students and how they want him to be story mode but he wants to be nightmare mode on these kids. And I miss like everything that you're going through, Feta. I'm laughing on the inside because of Doc went through it, and I remember through the years, and now he's on cruise control with it, and I'm waiting for that transition for you.
It'll be a while.
Yeah, and trust me, I'm a really good voice if you need to vent about it, because I know a lot about all this just because of all the years of Doc telling me about it. Venting is welcomed here. The couch is always open for you.
I want the kitty chair that you're sitting on.
Dude, it's actually becoming pretty comfortable.
Did you bend it yet? Is that why?
No, dude, dude, I'm 250 pounds, bro. I'm down.
Run it. That's huge.
But anyway, so Feta, I'm happy that you have a job. The other side of it where I'm going to make fun of you is that you're now leaving your house to go to work every day, and you don't have that extra free time that you had before, and it's actually hilarious.
Oh, yeah. No, my commute's like an hour and 10 minutes.
Oof. Doc, how long was your commute when you were in Arizona?
Oh, like 25 minutes. It was very easy.
Yeah.
When I was doing counseling work or clinical director work, that drive was like an hour and 10 minutes one way.
That's a long drive.
Such a waste of my life, right? That's such a huge percentage of your day.
Yeah.
Well, what I say is that huge percentage of your day led you to this point here. You wouldn't be where you are if you weren't the clinical director or driving into an office to teach at a school that you could have done it at home, all that stuff. So all roads lead to where we are today.
Well, that's an important part of the hero's journey too, is once you start messing with time and you say, like, my life would have been better if this struggle and suffering was never a part of it, you're now opening yourself up to the idea that you would be completely different without that. Your character and your personality that developed rely on those things being true.
Yeah. All right, Feta, you been gaming?
Yeah, somehow still finding time to game. I've been playing a couple of different games. Some of the First Descendant, keeping that up. And going back to the other Nexon game I play, Vindictus, with one of my buddies in the Navy. So anytime he's on shore, I make sure I make time to play with him. What else? That's about it. I haven't picked up a paintbrush in a couple of weeks, and that's starting to get to me. I won't lie.
I'll tell you what, ever since I started watching a little bit of Warhammer, I find it in my feed more and more. And it's all of like these mini painters were like first painting, second painting. And then it jumps to like 100th painting, and it's like yours now, where it's like perfect, crisp lines and all that stuff. And it's actually pretty funny to see the evolution.
I could show you my first ones. You'll be like, geez, dude. Why did you even do that?
It's still good. It's still good. Well, I'm glad you're still finding time to game, because I know starting a new job or moving or anything like that can be stressful, and it makes it hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're talking to the expert here, so he can give us the explanation.
Huh.
Oh, of starting new jobs or just
life challenges in general. So, I mean, we're going to get there, obviously. We'll see what Marcus has been up to. But a lot of the content on Dr. Gameology, the YouTube channel, it's quite insightful. And it really puts into perspective, why we play the games that we play and how they can impact, our daily lives.
Well, I was always of a mindset, and I play games, that like when I got home from school, I wasn't allowed to play video games right away. It was like, oh, you need to go outside or you need to go do this. But what I realized with my son now, he's in kindergarten, and like when he comes home, he's tired, and like we have hockey a couple nights a week. But the other side of that is that he'll come home and just say, Daddy, can I play Minecraft for a couple of minutes? And you go in his room and he plays it literally for 10 minutes. and he calms down. And he, like, when it's time to go to hockey, he's like almost refreshed that, like, okay, let's go play hockey now. You know what I mean? I got to play for 10 minutes, make his new character or go into a world and create something. And then it's almost like his soothing mechanism. You know what I mean? And it's something that I find as a parent, because I find video games relaxing, that does me really good. You know what I mean? But
Oh,
go ahead. Go.
I am constantly talking to people about how escape is usually a word that psychology types use to indicate that this is an addiction or an obsession and it's taking things away from your life, and escapes are not good because it indicates that you're not comfortable in reality. And at the same time, you see that same psychology type mental health professional counselor, and they're like, what are your coping skills? Let's learn coping skills during the counseling session. And it's like, I want you to find like 3 things on the wall and think about all the details about them so that you can remember them for 5 minutes. And that's a mindfulness exercise. And that's what we're turning to instead of playing Minecraft for 10 minutes. I'm just like, are you kidding me? You have Minecraft sitting right there. You're going to remember what you built for like 15 minutes. That's a mindfulness activity. They're like, no, that's an escape. It's like, what's the difference between an escape and a coping skill? Now, that's extreme. There is a difference between an escape and a coping skill. And there's positive escapes, pro-social escapes, and there's anti-social escapes. And you can really, that's a rabbit hole that you can go down almost infinitely. The point is, a lot of non-gaming people that are in the line of work I'm in, they don't see what's happening in the video games as the balance point between all those different flavors of escape. They want to just say, all these games that look like this and sound like this, and when you're sitting on the chair, your posture looks like this, and when I see that, you're doing a bad. And so I've found a way through my platform and through constantly trying to create content. And Feta, thank you so much for the kind plug and connecting this with my channel, because that's the goal. All the things I've ever streamed and all the videos I've ever I started dabbling in video editing about a year ago, and I've gotten much better if you look at those original videos, but I still love them. I wish they had more people watching those, because it really is just me trying to figure out, how do I give this message so that people will start to hear the idea that, just one idea, coping is not always a bad thing, and it doesn't mean you're addicted. It doesn't mean reality, that you feel reality is a terrible place. It's like sleeping and then being awake. You know, you need both in order to live life.
Well, yeah. in going with coping, right? So in the process of my crazy life, this past week, I've played NHL 24 and Minecraft. That's it. So we're playing hockey, both my son and I. Obviously, we've talked about it 1,000 times, but like, we decided to get a hockey game, and I haven't played a sports game in forever. And playing with my son is fun. Like, we may not even finish a whole game. We might even just play a period, but it doesn't matter. Like, the fact that we're doing it together is awesome. And then we'll go into 2-player Minecraft, or I'll watch him play Minecraft. But when he plays, like, it's not like he's playing and I'm staring at my phone. I'm involved. I'm like, why are you putting those blocks there? Why not use an emerald block or a diamond block or whatever it may be? And that engagement between each other, it's like we're bonding through a video game. And I'm getting I'm going to call it my video game fix, or what I need for me, through him right now. Yes, my office isn't done yet, and when it is, it'll be a lot better, because then I'll have my space again. But I'm still playing video games. It's just at a different level and with somebody else. You know what I mean? Instead of playing Elden Ring and getting stressed out playing Elden Ring. I'm playing Minecraft and playing hockey and loving it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I just was thinking about the last video I put out where I had the video assembled except up to the point where I switched over into Elden Ring to tell the story of this person who did therapy with me. You know, change his name, mask the details. But the point of that case is that he needed to find motivation to do better at college. And he told me he was playing Elden Ring at the exact time I was writing my chapter for the psychology of Elden Ring, which created a conversation that he became interested in. And then I turned it back to him and was like, so how far are you in Elden Ring? And he told me, I was like, that's really far. You've beaten some tough fights. He's like, yeah, I play it all the time. And then I started talking with him about, like, how are you getting your strategies and your informations, and how are you figuring out where the items are that you want to equip, the weapons you want to yield, what's your build, what's your level, how do you farm runes, or how much are you farming runes, or are you doing a low level run? And he told me all his stuff about how he's doing it. I told him a little bit about how I choose to play, and then I was just like, okay, so what's the college version of, like, what if your math class was an Elden Ring boss? What are what are those versions of things? And this happened years ago, okay, but it really fit with the video that I had a concept for in my head, and I just was like, I need video footage of me defeating a boss from the DLC. So I was like, well, I'm at a boss. I got to this boss during my last stream. I got flattened for about 45 minutes. I'm sure I can kill this boss. So then I turn the game on, and it's like, all I need is to kill this boss. And I'll have the footage, I'll clip it, I'll fit it into the video, and then I'll put the next RPG around it so that it fits. And it took me 55 minutes to get that footage of that 4-minute boss clear.
Yeah.
Damn.
And can you imagine the extra pressure of getting to 3% and you're like, I have my footage for the game, and then you're looking at your summon, because I use summons. We don't have to debate whether I'm a real Elden Ring player or not. I am a real Elden Ring chapter author, so I kind of don't care whether I'm a real Elden Ring player. I've also beaten the game 5 times. So maybe the real Elden Ring players, they're doing it the right way, that haven't beaten the game, have a leg up on me in their failure. But, okay, so we are talking about it. Magic people that summon are real Elden Ring players. Anyway, so...
Wait, no, you can't just drop that and not expect me to say something. So what I realized about Elden Ring, if I had, I don't want to say unlimited time, if I had more time to be able to play that game, I think I would be better at the game, and I would be able to do more with it, because I lose my rhythm when I play that game. So, like, I'll play it today, but then I won't play it for a week. And then you come back to the game and I want to say you're out of practice
you're
on
rusty,
it for me.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, rusty. And you just get demolished, and then, like, you get frustrated right away, and you're like, all right, this isn't for me. So unless I have more time, it's hard to do it. Now, the summons thing, I have to say something. So I believe through and through, if they put summons in the game, it's meant for you to use. I don't think that if they didn't, they were trying to make the game more accessible for people to play it, so they put summons in it, right?
Did Dark Souls have those, though?
I don't think so. I don't think there's ever been summons. But my point is, there's a reason why they put it in the game, so why would you hold yourself back by not using them? But if you want the ultimate challenge, then don't use it. I use summons on Radahn, but on, like, most boss fights, I don't.
There's so many summons on Radahn. Like,
I know,
that's
it's
clearly
ridiculous.
part of the fight.
Right.
You know who else uses summons to win tough fights? Roman Reigns, the tribal chief.
That's the best.
I don't see anyone saying he's not the greatest of all time.
John Cena, or Hulk Hogan, Sergeant Slaughter.
Sergeant Slaughter.
Sergeant Slaughter.
I wish I could have some of that.
Be awesome. All right, Doc, I got a question for you. Like, we've known each other a long time, but it wasn't always this way. When did you decide you wanted to try content creation?
I started streaming after I defended my dissertation back in 2016 to 17. Because I had some streams on my Twitch channel when I still lived in Florida. It never went anywhere. It was just more like I wanted to have the videos of the raid fights and of me with my friends. But I didn't have Twitch affiliate even. I didn't even understand how to have goals as a streamer back then. My setup was janky. I didn't have a good microphone. It was so funny. I probably deleted those videos because they embarrassed me so much. And then I think I just started doing it more seriously when I moved into the second house. So year 2 of me being in Arizona, I just was so isolated. You know, I moved across the country as somewhere where I have no family or friends for my job, and everything about my social life became remote and phone calls with friends that I was trying to stay connected to from my Florida days, and then Discord and raids. And those raids just felt like a good opportunity to stream, and people in the Utini guilds and also AIE and all the little offshoots of people who like to do raid fights and thought what I'm talking about was cool even back then, even though I hadn't figured out what it is I was talking about, started to watch. And so Twitch affiliate is not a super hard challenge, but it is still an accomplishment. And then I got a payout on Twitch just for playing video games, and I was like, well, this is not the same as being a professor, but unfortunately it's kind of close. So let's keep doing this, because this one is fun. And can you imagine if I ever had this be a job? And so then once you're doing that, Tio stepped down from UtiniCast. And I had been a guest the week immediately before that. In fact, Chill might have surprised me by announcing it on the episode I was guesting on. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but it led to a conversation with Chill on UtiniCast about whether he would be interested in me being the co-host. You were doing Working Class Nerds, and I was just showing up as a guest whenever I could, because I really like talking about stuff in video games and psychology. And so I think once I became the co-host of UtiniCast, I really started to learn how to be a voice on these things in an internet kind of way.
Yeah, you did. And look at where you are today.
Yeah. I'm on Working Class Nerds again, right where it started.
Right.
Oh, man, that sucks how that comes back around to bite you, huh?
But that's how the journey works, right? There's separation, there's initiation, and then there's the return. So this is like the return, Marcus.
Maybe. But for years, I always told Doc, with his platform and his professional career, he needed to focus on YouTube. And he was always like, no, I like Twitch. I like Twitch. I like Twitch. And I was like, dude, people want to hear your message. And YouTube is the place. And then one day he decided to play on YouTube. which led us to today, and now he's a YouTube partner.
Yeah. So I'm a YouTube partner basically because of Final Fantasy VII, which is actually so perfect for me because it's my favorite game of all time. And I first played it on my laptop that I got as a gift for going to college, right? So graduate high school, parents got me a laptop, and I learned how to emulate because Final Fantasy, I never had PS1, and I really wanted to play Final Fantasy VII because I really liked Kingdom Hearts, which led me to wanting to know more about Cloud and the secret boss Sephiroth. And then Final Fantasy VII Advent Children came out, which I thought was so cool. And then I was like, well, I want to play the game that these characters came from. So then I figured out how to emulate. Well, first I bought a copy of Final Fantasy VII and realized it doesn't play on the PS2. Sad.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. And then, so eventually I got to play it, and I had already played Knights of the Old Republic, so I kind of had an understanding of how JRPG, well, that one's not a JRPG, but how RPGs work with turn-based stuff. I love Pokemon since middle school. And the reason I'm mentioning these games is because it really forms the DNA of my book, The Gamer's Journey, even though I didn't understand in 2004 that someday I'm going to write things about these games. I just wanted to play them and enjoy them. And they captured this part of my mind that's trying to become better at psychology because I'm in college and then I'm in grad school. And I'm building my relationship with Cloud and Tifa and Aerith and, all the others, Red 13 and Kate Sith and Vincent.
Good old Vincent.
Yeah. And so, Sora and Riku and Kairi are in there too. And there's Link and Zelda and Ganondorf. And there's just all these really big, important games that I'm playing so much in between writing psychology papers and learning how to read journal articles in a scholarly way. And those ideas just kind of merged into what I was about. Even though I wasn't talking out loud in academic places about Final Fantasy VII, I was kind of just growing as a role-playing game player while I'm growing as a student. And that really is important because there was no one in college telling me I was wasting my time. I was just getting really good grades, going back to my dorm, which 2 of the semesters I had no roommate because of weird college scheduling things. So then it's like I don't have anyone to talk to unless I leave my dorm. So I'm just going to play all these different games, and I'm going to think about them. I'm going to play them before and after my philosophy courses. And I just really benefited from the ideas that video games can prompt if you accept the idea that video games are the modern form of mythological storytelling.
Wow. I'm just picturing young Doc playing Final Fantasy VII in his college dorm room while everybody else in the dorm is doing keg stands. He's playing Final Fantasy VII, fighting Sephiroth.
Yeah.
Who had more fun?
Doc, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
Keg stands are a moment they are not going to remember, probably, if I had to guess.
No, you get told you did a keg stand. You don't remember you did a keg stand.
Yeah, I definitely destroyed Sephiroth. And made so many basketball shots in that stupid golden saucer mini game and claimed Knights of the Round by breeding so many chocobos. So many chocobos had a fun time because of me needing to collect every materia in that stupid game. I love that game. It's not stupid, but...
What's better, the original or the remake?
Oh my gosh. Okay. There is one element of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth that bothers me, but I've made peace and done my therapy with it. There are too many mini games in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and side quests that take hours and hours of time away from the plot and the momentum of the plot. But I have found my New Game Plus playthrough where you can carry over all that side padding, so you don't have to do it. It's just play the story. And when you can just play the story and know that your characters have the EXP and the level and the stats they need to survive later, it is a masterpiece. And there are some people that legitimately do love all that extra content. So that's fine. When I was playing through it the first time, I was conflicted. And now that conflict, there is no conflict. It's wonderful. I love the original game. Obviously, there is no remake and rebirth without the original game. But I think that the way it's going, plus you add in the debate over predetermined fate and free will. And the first game ends very much in the free will can change fate. The second one, not so much. You can have all the free will you want and best intentions, and what's supposed to happen is going to happen, and suck on that cloud. So, without spoiling why, I hope that that's vague enough for your audience. But if you don't know, I'm pretty sure Wreck-It Ralph spoiled Final Fantasy VII. So, you know, we're dealing with an almost 30-year-old story. I'm not going to feel bad for even though I did dodge spoiling it better than Disney did. So take that.
You know, what's funny about what you said is about the side quests, but are they mandatory?
They're side quests, but there's always that doubt of what if I'm not a high enough level to hang with Sephiroth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I would say I can reference back to SWOTOR. I got caught the first time doing my class story with all the side quests, and I realized it was taking away from the actual story. So what I would do is I would do all of the world missions first, and then I would go back and do some of the side quests, because that's the only way I could follow that story.
Yeah, I just went in with this idea. In Remake, I did everything en route to the end. And in Rebirth, that is a huge time investment if you have not changed your mentality. And I did not want to play a 150-hour version of that game. And once I understood what was happening, I did loosen up some of my expectations. I stopped trying to 3-star every single minigame before moving on, because there were 3 days in a row where all my gaming time was just me becoming a frog trying to do jump rope. And I look back on that. I posted on Threads, on my Threads account, at how upset I was over the frog minigame and how, like, my entire gaming identity is just jumping rope as a frog now. And that was the last minigame where I challenged myself for days to stay on one thing because I have to get a perfect score on it. And you do miss out on items that way, but maybe someday I'll go get those items. Maybe I won't. We'll see. But that game has given me all the things I wanted to talk about, and I'm going to bring it back to the YouTube partner thing. The reason I'm YouTube partner, sorry for forgetting what the question was for 15 minutes while we talk about Final Fantasy VII, is we had a podcast episode about a year ago in December, so not quite a year, where me and my co-host Gene, it was a 2-person show, and we were talking about the most recent trailer that came out for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and it went about an hour and 15 minutes, and we got thousands of watches on YouTube, which was not normal for us, and the average view time was nearly 60 of those 75 minutes. And so I was already putting out content and trying my best to figure out how do I get to 4,000 hours. And that one podcast episode, because it talked about reacting to the trailer in the title, and it had the final shot of Aerith when she's in the spot where Sephiroth's feather floats in front of her head. So, like, that's the moment. And Square Enix put that as the end of the trailer, and everyone who knows that story is like, this story, this remake story about can free will overcome fate? And they put that moment in the trailer. And so it was just like, it was a perfect storm, I think, of the thumbnail being like, oh, who are these guys? They're going to talk about this. And then it was a long video. We didn't go straight to the point. Trailer reaction. And I woke up one morning in January, early January. I don't remember the exact date, maybe January 4th or 6th or something like that. About a week and a half after the podcast came out. And I just had this button of like, was it a button or was it a confirmation? It was in the monetization tab, and it was like apply for partner or like congratulations, your YouTube partner. I was like on the couch watching TV with at least my wife. I don't remember if my son was there or not. I was just like, oh my gosh. She's like, what? I was like, I just made it to YouTube partner. And she's like, what does that mean? And I was like, I did not think that I was going to get the numbers for that even this year. What happened? And then I went and looked, and I was like, what happened? And it was because of Aerith and Final Fantasy VII and that trailer, the great song, the way that we chose to like play the trailer in the audio and react to it and then watch it again and talk about it and break it down section by section, like all the video game websites do. We've been probably consuming that content ourselves since we were teenagers, well, since the internet. So like we just decided to do one episode of our show that way, and that really, like, that game already meant the most to me out of every game except maybe Star Wars The Old Republic, because that was my dissertation game. But short of like, that's because of me being in it. And then that podcast episode was another instance of like Final Fantasy VII really, a game came through for me in a way that you can't predict that. Like when you start playing it, you don't have that in your mind that that's what this is all about. So, yeah. It's always going to be a special game to me.
I haven't played the remakes, which I want to, but I'm torn because do I play it on the PlayStation because it's PlayStation, or do I get it on the computer because I play on the PC? You know what I mean? And yeah. I think about where will I play it more.
Do you have a Steam Deck?
No.
Okay, so here's the solution. You get a Steam Deck and you buy Final Fantasy VII Intergrade whatever on Steam, and that becomes your Steam Deck game. And then you can play it wherever, whenever.
I don't know about you guys, but I find it hard for me to play on a handheld. Like if I'm flying, it's just okay. But the screen is small and it's cumbersome and like it's not for me. You know what I mean?
The screen is big when it's this far away from your face.
Right.
I was gonna say, when it's glued to the other end of my nose, it looks pretty big, man. Like I got my Switch right here, and this thing is just locked in to where I can only see. It's like I'm wearing a visor.
Not every game runs well on the Steam Deck, but Final Fantasy VII Remake runs very well. I've played it completely through on there. It runs perfect on the PS5, obviously. So maybe the solution is actually join the Rage online, Marcus, and declare what side you're on the PS5 Pro debate. Right here, right now. Are you going to get one?
Never. I'm not spend if you're going to spend
you're no fun.
Never?
Well, why would I buy a PS5 Pro when I have a dope ass laptop and a dope ass computer?
Then you just answered where you're going to buy Final Fantasy VII.
But it plays perfectly on a regular PlayStation. My son and I have a PlayStation, like a regular PS5. I don't need the Pro.
There you go. Get it on the PS5 then. I did not remember that. My apologies.
No, it's fine.
You strike me as an Xbox guy.
I am definitely an Xbox guy. The Xbox controller is the greatest controller ever created. But
so then why wouldn't you want to buy Final Fantasy on the PC and use your Xbox controller?
Well, what I'm saying is I'm just trying to find my groove. The top secret thing is eventually I'll buy my own PlayStation for my office so that I don't have to share it with my son, because if he's playing a video game, I'm never going to be able to sit in front of the TV and play that. Like, I have Bloodborne and I really want to play Bloodborne, but I can't play it because I'm always if the PlayStation is on.
Oh my gosh.
The chat pad. Yeah. Either way, I should just get it and suck less. So now that you're YouTube partner, what would you say your goal for YouTube is? Goals for YouTube are?
Well, what's the next step?
Yeah, what's the next step?
I actually restarted streaming on Twitch and on YouTube, but I'm really trying to emphasize Twitch for live content because I don't understand how the algorithm works as far as live content on YouTube. I had one stream that had over 200 people watching, and then most of my streams have one or two. And I don't understand why that one stream peaked that way, but there's very little interaction in chat on YouTube also. So it's like, how do I...
Oh, this is good.
How do I do anything with that?
All right. I'm gonna break it down because I actually watched a video from one of my favorite creators who plays on Twitch and does YouTube. I watch him mostly on YouTube, right? Because he does a ton of different stuff. Like, he does reactions to everything, and I enjoy his content. Anyway, if a streamer is looking for chat, and that is what makes their stream for them, you stream on Twitch, because the chat is a part of the community and the culture of Twitch, right? YouTube is, people will watch your stream on YouTube, but they don't type. They are your coworkers and other people who are just watching it to watch it. They don't care about saying, "Hey, dude, how's the day going?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a culture thing. The other thing about YouTube is that YouTube doesn't push their live streaming service more because of what it costs to embed. So if all of a sudden they make streaming amazing, they have to spend a lot of money to handle the 8K bitrate and embedding all that code. So they don't push it, they push videos. That's their business. Videos and advertising.
Okay.
So, of course you're going to have your big streamers who are on YouTube, but do you know who Tim the Tatman is?
Yeah.
Okay. Tim the Tatman's contract on YouTube, so he was like averaging like 25,000 people watching on YouTube. First day on Twitch, he had over 100K watching him, and in one day he made like $60,000 in subs.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what's next, fella.
That's the next step, baby.
Yeah.
We're buying houses in a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Please
goal...
stop giggling at me over there.
I think it's hilarious. What did you do yesterday? I paid for half my house.
Playing Astrobot. Yeah, so I've gone back to streaming on Twitch, but the reason is actually really cool. It's not just that I want to stream on Twitch, although I would love someday for something to happen where I see the growth over there and can become Twitch partner too. That's like my content creator dream, is to be partner on both. Because I see value in both and I want to feel like I'm a good example of how to succeed on both. But the reason I'm back on Twitch is because it feels more interactive. People are more likely to chat. I'm trying to teach my counselors on my gaming services program at Kindbridge Behavioral Health to understand what video games actually are beyond the view that is common when most people graduate and become licensed mental health counselors. That's the thing that sets me apart and defines my work. That's the thing that grabs people's attention. And I'm trying to build a program where no matter which counselor a person who plays video games gets placed with, they can trust at Kindbridge that their counselor has the ability to talk with them about games from a positive psychology perspective, but still hold them accountable for the kinds of goals that come from successful mental health services. And that would be so unique for our field if I can get the counselors to do that. And in talking with the other members of the executive leadership at Kindbridge, I brought up this idea that I'm thinking about going back to streaming. And based on the group supervision call, where it's me leading a bunch of counselors and talking about video games and helping them get this certification from either the Certified Geek Therapy credential, which I train people for, or the International Gambling and Gaming Certification Board has both gambling and video game specific certifications. And I was the president of that board last year. And so I'm a trainer for those credentials too. And so basically that is, if you're keeping track of what's happened since I met Marcus and we did Dread Palace, there's been a lot of things in my career where people saw the way that I talk about and think about games and said, do this thing for us. We think that we need you to lead our counseling staff. And that has led to the situation I'm in where Kindbridge was like, yeah, create a Google form where you can track what insights are our counselors learning about the game, specifically that game. Make sure they're watching the stream. Make sure they're telling you what date. Make sure it matches and it's correct. Give them partial credit, like a partial supervision hour for hanging out and being a part of your Twitch stream. And I started posting those on LinkedIn, and every stream that I've done since I started doing this has had either college students that are interested in the psychology of video games or people who are looking for that kind of clinical training and they already have their degrees in psychology and counseling. And then there's also the people who know me from AIE and from other gaming communities that are coming in. You know, I had Doritos hang out with me for Astrobot this morning, part of your community, part of the SWTOR community too.
We love Doritos.
I know, he's so great. And you know, every single stream I've done on Twitch has been different since I integrated all the parts of my identity into what I am as a streamer instead of having it be compartmentalized. And by the way, when I switched to Dr. Gameology, that was me as a professor saying, I've had enough of letting my students not realize who I am. And me knowing who my professors were a big part of why I built relationships with them and connections with them, and why I came through for myself in classes that were taught by them. You know, I did it for me, but there were times where I tried extra hard because I didn't want them to think I was a scrub. And that's because I respected them and their work, and I wanted them to see me as someone who's capable of doing that same kind of work. That's part of who I am. And I have a neat story, actually. When we create content, we see the numbers, and we might have some conversations with some friends who decide to watch it, and that's nice. But I don't often think about what those numbers represent in terms of like how many people that I actually know are watching this. So on Tuesday morning, I got an email from my former doc program professor who's at a different university, different state. And she said, Daniel, I've been seeing all the videos that you've been posting on LinkedIn, and they are phenomenal. We have a conference at our university the first weekend or second weekend of October, and here are all the open spots. Would you be able to present and just talk about any topic on the psychology of video games for our students? I think they'd really benefit from your perspective. I was just like, man, I got a conference presentation out of putting the fact that I'm going to talk about platforming, motivation, PlayStation nostalgia, and stuff on Twitch. So that just happened this week, so it's fresh in my mind, and it's like I did not have any plans I didn't know that event was happening, and it's just like, as a content creator, what I'm trying to say is, if you have an idea, especially if it's an idea that is unique to you and you're a person that can share this, that not a lot of people are going to be able to say it that way, just create it. Like, just do it. And if it doesn't resonate with anyone that you know, that doesn't mean it doesn't resonate at all. Not everyone sends that email or that message or that text or that DM. But when it does, it's like, if less than 1% of the people that actually respond, then you getting that one message means that there are a lot more people that are seeing it and just not getting around to responding. So you can still maintain that hope and be excited by the fact that you're creating something that made a difference in someone's day.
This moment, I want to mark this down as September 12th, 2024. I've been waiting 2 years to have this talk. So I remember 2 years ago, Doc said to me, I'm going to write a book. And I was like, what are you going to write it about? I don't know yet. I have an idea, but I don't know. And I don't even know if I can do it, he said. And 2 years later, I got to read, or myself, Feta, and Rayu got to read the introduction and the first chapter, which there should have been more chapters than one, but we're not going to complain. We're going to be happy with what you have.
We just have to be patient, dude.
Yes,
that's it.
yes.
Just hold your horses.
That's not me. But anyway, of the gamer's journey, and it is available for pre-order everywhere. Everywhere you can find the book online or in stores, you can pre-order it.
You can throw a link down in the show notes too.
Oh, we will for sure.
Absolutely.
We'll do the Barnes and Noble and we'll do the Amazon. And
which one helps Doc more?
I'm guessing both.
Same. Yeah,
perfect.
Equally the same.
Then both.
I'm sure Barnes and Noble and Amazon both take 30%. So it doesn't really matter,
I wish
right?
it was only 30%.
Oh, maybe they take more. I don't know. Well, I know Amazon is straight 30%. But anyway, my whole point is the gamer's journey is here. So, Doc, what is the gamer's journey?
When I was so when I was a college student, the Star Wars DVDs came out, and Empire of Dreams was the big extra feature. I think it was multiple hours of just behind the scenes footage and interviews and things about the original trilogy getting created. And whenever you start talking about the creation of A New Hope, these documentaries tend to go into Joseph Campbell, Hero with a Thousand Faces, and the hero's journey. Because that is the DNA of Star Wars, because it's the DNA of all the stories that we've decided to spend time remembering since we started recording stories and passing them down through cultures to create shared value systems and things that become authentically that society. So the Greeks have these, and the Romans have these, and Norse mythology has anything with a mythology or a religion has these kinds of stories, and they echo across time, and we remember them because the characters are facing challenges that metaphorically are the same, but detail-wise are unique to the fears and concerns of that culture. And, you know, just for example, you take a biblical story like the Great Flood and everyone dying from a lot of rain, and then you fast forward to the Watchmen where everyone's worried about nuclear holocausts during the Cold War. Those are both stories of cataclysmic demise with powers that are beyond the regular human and a select few who are able to survive and make a difference. But the origin of that fear is unique to what would that society imagine the end of the world comes from. And so as a result, those fears and concerns and methods of survival are the heroic story for that set of people at that set of time. That's what makes them mythological, or a story worth remembering. And so video games have always done this for me since around that same time. I told you I was playing Final Fantasy VII, I was playing Kingdom Hearts 2, I was taking philosophy, I was taking several psychology courses, and Empire Dreams comes out. I'm watching that in my dorm room, which for some reason I'm in by myself because I didn't have a roommate that semester. And so now I know who Joseph Campbell is, and I'm like, I want to know more about this. That sounds really fascinating to me. So I shortly after that got a copy of Hero with a Thousand Faces and started reading it, but I didn't finish it at the time. I just remember thinking to myself that a lot of the video games I'm playing are doing these same things. So I'm in my mid-20s and nothing happens with that idea. That idea is basically somebody should probably, write a book about how video games do this too, because obviously Joseph Campbell didn't mention video games because this book was published in 1949. So that idea was inside of me somewhere the entire time I'm becoming a counselor, getting my license, becoming a doc student, choosing to research MMOs, looking at what hasn't been done with MMOs, what personality test has never been paired with MMOs. Which MMO? Oh, okay, well, they announced Star Wars The Old Republic. Maybe that game will be out when I'm a doc student. Oh, that game launched the first semester I'm a doc student. And then it just kind of organically happened. And then I wrote a chapter in Psychology of Pokemon where Dr. Anthony Bean, who is the owner of Geek Therapeutics and the editor for all of Leyline Publishing's books, told me, we already have a chapter on the hero's journey or something like that. And I was like, okay, well, how about I write about this? Which was code for, I'm going to still be talking about the hero's journey, but the focus is on this other thing. And he said, that sounds great. So then I wrote that chapter, and it went really well. It was such a fulfilling process for me to put that together, and just to think about how important it was to me that I picked Charmander, but also what it means to pick Squirtle and Bulbasaur.
Yeah.
And
Squirtle.
then to break down just what that original Gen 1 of Pokemon is teaching young minds and grown-up minds who were young minds. And then at the time, Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee was out, so people are getting to reimagine that Gen 1 story. And Pokemon Go didn't have too many generations back then either. So I was just thinking to myself, so back in 2021 or 22, it would have been, 21. I was thinking to myself, I probably could write that book if I could figure out how to write an entire book instead of one chapter. So then I don't remember the timeline wise whether it was before or after I wrote the Elden Ring chapter. But around that time I had created the outline of just, if I had to do this in 15 plus chapters, what would those chapters be? Because at the time, I think I had 7 or 8 peer-reviewed articles too, and one of them was about how counselor development is the hero's journey. And I had done a presentation about the game journey for Geek Therapeutics, which I'm still getting emails about today, about how much it touched people's spirit and helped them believe in what they're doing in their life, whether they're clinicians or clients on their own mental health journey. So Journey changed my life too. And because of that game and the chapters I wrote in these books, I decided someone else might do this later. They might do it better, or maybe not. But I might as well be maybe I'm the person that needs to do this. So then I took that outline, I started writing the chapters just for fun. That's when I told you more. I'm pretty sure when I said I don't know what it would be, I was saying that to prevent myself from having to feel really terrible if the outline didn't get accepted by Leyline Publishing.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to just call your baloney right now, because when you came, you would call me and go, "Oh my God, Marcus, I finished the outline of the book." Well, what is it about? The gamer's journey. Well, what is that? I have an idea, but I can't tell you right now.
Right, because if it doesn't happen, I don't want to feel sad. But if I have the outline, Marcus, I know what it's going to be. I just don't know what is going to actually be in each chapter, right? That's the thing about writing this, is you know what the title of the chapter might be, but it could change. You have an idea of what games might show up in this, but once you start writing the paragraphs, it's going to change. Like, I had complete intention to talk about certain games at some point in the book, and those games are not in the book because it didn't fit by the time I got to the place where I thought the opening would work. There's almost 200 different games that are touched on and utilized in this book by the time you reach the end. And there's still games where it's like, I can't believe I couldn't fit that one in.
Well, give us an example.
Minecraft. I don't think I mentioned Minecraft a single... No. If I did mention Minecraft, then it would be Fortnite. One of those I'm sure I didn't mention because they don't matter to me. But that doesn't mean that they can't matter to you. And I bring that up, I think, in the foreword, that there's going to be games that matter a lot to you, that they're not a part of my telling of this. But that's what this is all about. Is that my journey and my attempt to share a journey that fits with most people is still not going to perfectly match yours, and I'm excited to find out what that looks like.
Yeah.
Did I say that in the foreword?
Yeah. No, you definitely did.
Okay.
And you kind of talked about how it's personal but applicable, and it's kind of like invites us to apply our experiences with games to the same sort of journey, because it is, at the end of the day, a universal experience it to some degree, how they affect anybody who picks up a video game.
Yeah, and actually writing the chapter about that transformation from what we call the nascent moment, which is in the hero's journey, the hero has not done anything yet. They haven't had that staring off into the horizon moment that Luke Skywalker and Moana have, where they're like, there's a line where the sky meets the sea, it calls me. They haven't had that moment yet. They're just living in their existence, and something feels empty, but they're not really defining it. It's just whatever. And I connected that in the part of the book where we start the stages, that nascent moment where you weren't a game player and then you get to play a game and you get to start thinking about, how do I solve problems through a controller, through this mouse and keyboard, and how do I think fast enough? How do I not die? How do I jump over that thing? And for me, the first video game that I remember ever really playing would have been Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And so for me, that first game is definitely Super Mario Brothers. And that's where I view that moment of, I wasn't a game player, but now I am. Now I can sit with that controller. I understand what it means to use this controller and be connected with Mario. And that Mario is how I have to go about solving my problems. Just like a calculator and a pencil and paper is how I have to go about solving my problems in my math class. These are just the tools that are going to help me determine whether I was successful or unsuccessful. And so then once you do that, life is just a series of games connected by you and your motivation and your mental flexibility to figure out how to find the solutions.
Something that I appreciated in the first chapter of the book is that there were charts that explain the path. I don't know what you would call it. See, I saw it as what you're talking about. It's showing you the steps or the levels of how things are sought in your mind. And every word I read it in your voice. It was kind of funny.
There were 2 words I actually didn't read in Doc's voice.
Yeah.
Hey,
what were they?
Listen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Navi definitely comes in and does her thing for sure, no matter whose words wrote them.
It doesn't matter who writes that down.
Yeah. So the graphics in chapter 1 really mean a lot to me. There's some psychology works that really influenced what I was hoping to capture. And first off, anyone who's talked with me about psychology since the time after I did my journey presentation, which was a huge turning point in who I am as a person, not just career-wise, but just realizing that what I'm talking about in terms of finding meaning and purpose through a video game and understanding what that means, it really inspired me to go back and read some of the books that were just assignments to me in my master's program, and then figure out, what does this really mean for me? And one of those books that was part of my prep for the journey presentation was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who was a Holocaust survivor and psychologist who the Nazis took his work, that was his whole life's work that he was working on, synthesizing into a theory that psychologists would use that would go side by side with people like Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud at the time. The Nazis burned it and then sent him to the concentration camps, which he survived through all that suffering. And one of the key takeaways of that book is that if a person has a why, they can overcome any how. And that is such a devastating circumstance to live through and come out with so many good ideas for future generations. Logotherapy does exist. It is different than it would have been if the Nazis never torched his stuff. And it came to define all kinds of perspectives on humanism and existential psychology about what it means to be a person and what it means to find purpose in life and what it takes to actually have the courage to pursue purpose instead of flee from it, hide from it, or not pursue it at all. And so many of our stories are about that. The difference between the heroes and the people who are a part of the village where the heroes started is that the people who never left didn't go after whatever it was that passed them by, and often the camera follows the hero, and the controller has us be that hero. Link leaves Kokiri Village, or Kakariko Village, his forest, and talks to I'm forgetting, there's so many different games conflicting my memories here, but the tree, where the first dungeon is in Ocarina of Time, that leads to him being able to leave that forest and enter Hyrule Field. All the other NPCs did not get to Hyrule Field. It's right there. They didn't do it, but Link did. And I was controlling Link with one of the funkiest controllers that ever existed. And that means something to me. And so, that book, I think, comes back to me all the time when I'm thinking about what's a thing that I think I should do that would be good for me and my connection with purpose. Then once that idea enters my mind, I'm cursed, I think, because of all these pesky anime-style heroes that I've been in my life, that I have to go after it. And that is because of a lot of things, not just the games I play, but the people I've played games with. And there are specific conversations with you and me, Marcus, where I didn't understand that what I was saying was interesting, because I'm always me. I'm always in my head. Some of the things I think in my head are definitely outtakes. And there were a couple SWOTOR streams early on in our story mode days where we're just figuring out how am I going to heal this group through some of this stuff. And you just kind of pointed out that the way I talk about video games is really interesting to you. And then I started to be like, really? So, that started to help me understand purpose as well. That's what led to me deciding to actually turn these ideas into an outline, the outline into the chapters. And by the time I sent everything to Leyline Publishing, I had already written the first 6 chapters. And it was kind of rough. I'm sure there were too many words in all the version of those chapters. But he said it was good, so just keep writing it and keep sending it to him when I get to different milestones. And so that's what I did. And then we got a contract in June of 2022. And he said to have the full first draft by December 31st, which greatly escalated the speed that I had to be getting through chapters. So I wrote, with a streak that was already started, 272 days in a row, I created something for that book that did not exist the day before. And I turned it in on December 24th.
That shit's crazy.
That's what I did to my dissertation, too, is I just started looking at it like it's a daily in an MMO. It doesn't have to be a big step forward, but it has to be a step forward. And if I'm on a writing phase, that step forward is at least a paragraph. If I'm on a research phase, that step forward is at least 1 page of notes, or a certain number of pages with notes written. And I did it, and I calendared it on my wall. Every day I'd write down a check mark in what I did that day, just so that I could see it happening. And a lot of that is because of the checklists we get in video games. Is I needed it to be real. I gamified it. I turned it into an RPG that mattered to me more than it would matter to anyone else. And that these are my stats. These are my progress charts. These are my green check marks on the boss fights.
On the days that you didn't want to write, or when you were feeling blah, what inspired you to keep going?
That December 31st deadline? No, I'm kidding.
No.
I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm kidding.
That would have been motivation by fear. This is actually a very video game inspired answer. When I was a doc student, I started doing a thing with my alarms that really I do every day still, just in different ways. At the time, I would use the Pokemon theme song, which has about 4 seconds of loud guitars, and then the phrase very loud, "I want to be the very best like no one ever was." And I would set my phone up on the opposite side of my bedroom to where I can't just reach it with my hand. I have to stand, then walk over to get it. And by the time I do that, I certainly will hear the phrase, "I want to be the very best like no one ever was." So now that I'm awake and standing, I might as well go make my coffee and go sit at my computer and write something for my dissertation, because someone who is the very best and doesn't just want to be has already written something today. And this was my interpretation of the Mamba mentality from Kobe Bryant and the idea of 5 a.m. workouts. And so I heard that interview, and I just kind of adapted it into my alarm system. I picked a song that would be inspiring to me and give me a quick message that you can't go back to sleep if you want to be the very best like no one ever was. And these days I use a different song from Final Fantasy XIV that still inspires me in much the same way, but it's more about like achieving destiny.
It is your destiny.
Having to fight yourself, kind of, in order to achieve destiny. But I have just been doing that for 8 years now, using an alarm that gives me a puzzle I have to solve. It's not just a button. And then a song that you can't turn off fast enough because of the puzzle. So I gamified waking up, and I put work at a time where there's nothing else to compete. That's just me versus the goal.
Wow. Beta.
Hmm.
I see you got a question.
I do have a question. I don't. It's not anything on the notes or anything.
No, just ask it.
Yeah, there was a question that I wanted to ask about the reading that you provided to us, and it brought in that idea of persona and personality, and kind of allowed me to reflect a little bit about my own character choice, and in certain games how there are predefined roles, and I would often gravitate to those roles that I think I should exemplify outside of video games. But then you offered a little bit of contrast where you have the avatar creation, and I wanted to know what your thoughts were on someone who often will select a role that they think they should have, and then having that stark contrast when they're given that freedom to select something completely different.
Yeah, so when you're saying role, are you saying things like tank, heal, DPS, range
Exactly.
versus melee? Okay,
Yeah.
so if you're building your character, and the book goes into this directly, there's a really good avatar psychology article by Bowman et al. That talks about the 4 different types of avatar creation, and it agrees and complements so well my research, which is on personality typing and motivation and how we play our MMO games specifically. So, this kind of stuff is my favorite thing, especially with games that are MMOs or games like Persona that make it so easy to talk about psychological principles in video games because the whole narrative is about that psychological world. So, if you are creating a character because of its utility in a group with other people, that is the style of creation called avatar as an instrument. If you're creating a character so that it is visually and personality wise a version of you, but in this video game fictional world, that is potentially one out of a series of other types of avatar creation. It could be avatar as self, or it could be avatar as a symbiote. Meaning that, like for me, I play as a cute dyed hair anime girl named Kyrie in Final Fantasy XIV. But in Star Wars The Old Republic, I play as Darth Kaldon, which is just the letters of my name shuffled. And that Kaldon looks like me as much as I could with the character creation choices.
And all the dark side eyes.
He's a Sith sorcerer, which Emperor Palpatine is the INTJ on the Star Wars MBTI chart. And that actually is why I knew I needed to do my dissertation, because I didn't know what I did until I started researching personality, and I saw this Star Wars chart and realized my Star Wars The Old Republic character is my personality type on this chart. I wonder how many people do this. But the difference between as self and as a symbiote is that as a symbiote, I can change qualities about myself to be something that I think will fit better into this world and make me connect with the world and the character better, because that is fiction and I am not in that world. But in Star Wars, I'd spent so much time earlier in life thinking about being in Star Wars that I did create a character that felt very good to me to play with Avatar as self. So people can play different styles. There is also a fourth type, which is Avatar as an other, which is where you just create a character that in no way reflects anything internally to you. It is just a character that exists for the sake of existing, and you want to play it to experiment with what that style of play as that character looks like.
Yeah, it really did make me think, because, you know, I do that so often, and I think I identify most with the Avatar as a symbiote because I love the opportunity to make up for my preconceived shortfalls via the Avatar. So try and make what I would think is the ideal version of what I would want to be if I was placed in that setting.
Yeah.
So it was just really thought-provoking. So I just wanted to know, you personally, and you kind of explained it a little bit, which style you like to exercise.
I originally created a character in Final Fantasy XIV that was male and was meant to be what would I look like if I was in this Final Fantasy world, but had these character creation options. And I leveled him for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and I just didn't play the game for months and months after that day. It didn't capture the feeling that I got from playing SWTOR.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think I was going to return to Final Fantasy XIV at that time either. Star Wars The Old Republic had a series of challenges in it that I was involved with the group to try to conquer, and I got so deflated and couldn't stand playing Star Wars The Old Republic anymore. And so then I went back and created a different character, which was female, and I leveled her beyond that first character in the same day. It just felt like a much more enjoyable experience. And I talked with Nick Yee, who created the motivation questionnaire in my dissertation and in my Final Fantasy VII study. He was on my podcast, our first guest that we had, if you don't count Marcus as a guest, and he was a fill-in. So research mentor of mine, this was a really big conversation for me, and I talked to him about this, and he said that male characters tend to be emotional bricks, and that if you look at the difference between facial emoting on female avatar versus male avatar, and you're looking for an emotional connection with the story, is very common that it actually in the research is not showing that it's just, if I'm going to stare at a character's ass for 50 hours, I want it to be a female one. That's not actually what shows in the research. It's more that the emotional resonance of the story actually does play out for many game players' perceptions to be better when your character is female, and that if you enjoy being a male character, you also are not looking for that level of emotional inflection in the story from facial features and gestures and things like that. I thought that was really an interesting answer, because I didn't know what he was going to say to that question on that podcast, but it really does explain a lot of what I've experienced in Final Fantasy XIV, for sure.
All of my SWTOR characters were me or my family, and that was my connection to it. Like, the main character I played was named after my daughter.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I looked at her as, like, teenage daughter just destroying everything in Path. You know what I mean?
Aren't we a couple years away from that for real?
No, come on. Don't rush that shit.
I don't know. It's right around the corner.
But, all right, Doc. When's the book come out?
Amazon list is November 25th. The Kickstarter is over. It reached its full funding and several of its bonus goals. So if you supported that, thank you so much. You'll probably be getting your book before that November 25th date. But the pre-orders on all of the online websites indicate November 2024.
All right. We got a couple little ones from Working Class Questions.
Yeah, that's so fun.
Rayu asks, Dr. Feta, why am I still sick?
Because you don't eat your vegetables and you don't get enough sleep. Move on.
Eat your vitamins and say your prayers.
All right, Rayu asks, Dr. Gameology, with your expert opinion, how mentally damaged does one have to be to host Working Class Nerds? Wow, I didn't even pre-read that.
You really just put that in there like that?
Yeah, I didn't even pre-read that.
Oh, boy.
Ethically, I think it would be irresponsible of me to try to identify any mental status variables in the people that are not officially in treatment with me. But probably a lot. Like, maybe
It probably should be in treatment with you.
Maybe watch the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix and then draw your own conclusions.
Rack Evans says, tell Doc I say hi.
I said hi back in Discord. I hope you saw it.
My last question is, if there's one takeaway you get from the book, when you finished writing it and now it's being published, if you were talking to an aspiring author, what would be the one piece of advice you would give them?
Stand up for your vision and just write it. There were a lot of times in this process where people that were not in the video game side of life the way I was would give academic recommendations about the book, and I would have to reject it and say there's no way we're cutting that game out of that stage of the hero's journey. You can't do it, because if we sell 1 million copies of this book, 999,000 plus are going to be upset that that game did not show up in this chapter. And I didn't think it was going to work out at several times, honestly. But I just kept having the conversation, and I just kept making the edits in the way that I thought served my vision. And Tony, my editor, Dr. Bean, had my back. Even, we weren't texting every day or anything, but at the times where I was feeling really defeated, he always came through and said, you have to do what's best for the chapter, and the only person who can really decide that is you. Something like that. So that's what I would say, is if you have a vision, take the recommendations that make you better. Be open to changing if it makes it better, but also bring that vision to reality. And you gotta believe. Oh, there are no Parappa the Rapper references in the Gamer Journey, but we got one on Working Class Nerds, so.
All right, Doc. Thank you for being such a great friend.
Oh, thanks, Marcus.
Tell everybody where they can find you.
I am at Dr. Gameology or the Dr. Gameology channel on YouTube and Twitch and Threads and Instagram and TikTok. I have been putting more focus in short form content recently. Took a little bit of a break, but I'm back to it now. And that's been a lot of fun. So just find me, send me messages. If you think anything resonates, please leave the comments on the YouTube stuff especially. I read and respond to everything, even if I think you're a bot. I try to turn it into something that's either funny or gives me a chance to emphasize one of the points that I hope people get from the videos. And some of the best parts of doing the Psychology of Gaming playlist on YouTube has been when people I don't know just share how much Tifa or Ada Wong matter to them, or how much my point about Dead by Daylight teaching good mental health coping skills and how that's wild to them. That stuff just turns my day around instantly, because it's like, yes, like hours and hours of editing and trying to get that footage for one person. It's insane how that works, but it really does work for me that way.
What are you guys talking about in here?
Find out next episode of Working Class Nerds.